Our country continues to combat climate change. By now you know the dangers: coral bleaching, rising sea levels, and extremely violent storms. But do you know how the Cayman Islands can lessen the impact of what's to come? The Department of Environment hopes the National Climate Change Adaptation Policy will do just that. The policy is being polished at DOE's conference.
Earlier this year, the consultants from the Caribbean Climate Change Center in Belize were here, and they assisted us in national consultations with a number of stakeholder groups. These groups were a cross-section of industry, so from the tourism sector, the financial services industry, the construction and real estate sector, government-wide, some NGOs. So we had those meetings in January, and from those meetings we developed an issues paper of national climate change issues relevant to the Cayman Islands. And it's that issues paper that's going to be discussed more widely and agreed upon at this workshop. And hopefully from that, the agreed draft, we can then move forward with some of the recommendations in the draft to develop the formal national adaptation strategy that will be ultimately submitted to Cabinet.
The draft addresses climate change concerns, specifically in the tourism industry.
It dealt with the impacts of climate change on tourism, not just the physical attributes that may be affected, such as the impact of climate change on our coral reefs, but also some of the less thought of international policies that could have an impact on our tourism industry. For example, if carbon tax was applied to the aviation sector and what that might mean for increase in airline travel to the region or specifically to the Cayman Islands, and how or what have we done to build those types of considerations into making our tourism sector here more resilient.
The policy also speaks to coastal development.
So, for example, setbacks on the coast and elevation as well. In terms of ground floor, what's appropriate, that was probably one of the most common issues. In terms of new legislation that would probably be required to climate-proof not just developments from a physical standpoint, but also from an economic standpoint, would be things like increasing natural buffers, be they reefs or mangroves or even seagrass beds that help with shoreline stabilization, but also policies with the insurance sector to have differential rates for people that do try to reduce their impact and be rewarded for that type of thing. Again, like building to a higher ground floor level, or have wash-through ground floors if they're on the coast, so that the cost implications are not borne by everyone when we're facing an impending storm, or if we've actually been impacted by a strong hurricane, which it's expected we will be impacted by more Category 4 and 5 hurricanes in the future as a result of climate change.
Our country's economic base is dependent on development, so it's going to be critical to strike a balance between developing our country, so we can maintain our economy, but then develop it in a sustainable way that is not detrimental to the environment, which would increase the global warming impacts on the Cayman Islands.
Experts say the blow won't be as harsh to the Cayman Islands, the region and the world for that matter, if we work together.
At the base of this thing is the way we use energy, and to the extent that you can decrease your carbon footprint by looking at energy efficiency measures, more efficient motor vehicles, less air conditioning, designing the buildings so that they don't require that much lighting, by moving to renewables, utilizing the solar energy that we have, clean energy, moving towards a clean energy pathway, and being conscious basically about the way we utilize resources, the way we utilize our water, fully aware that energy input to getting that water to you is reasonably significant. So any action that we can take to lessen our carbon footprint is to be supported.
Quite a lot came out over the last 2 days. We're looking at telling them that climate change is happening now. It's not something off in the future. It is real, because apparently some segments of the population are doubtful as to whether climate change is real or not. And that responding to climate change makes economic sense. And if you don't, You know, if you don't sort of shore up your properties, if you don't reduce your carbon footprint, then the impacts down the road can have certainly economic but social effects as well.
The Department of Environment will post the final draft of the National Climate Change Adaptation Policy on their website, www.doe.ky.